fatigués. On est là. Alors, mettez-moi les clés. Pourquoi on a deux? Un peu sur les deux.
On est en ligne, en fait.
Pardon?
On est en ligne, hein, Marie, c'est ça?
Oui, oui, on est en ligne.
Hello, everybody. We give the system a few minutes to deal with the load. Vous me direz quand ça stabilise. Je vois pas le nombre de... Hello, everybody. We're still waiting a little bit because people are connecting to the platform, and there are a lot of people this evening, of course, so it takes time. This way you can check your audio. I hope you have your popcorn, everything ready for a nice event. Tu peux le mettre en ukrainien? J'ai prévu de le dire dans le... Ok. Okay. Almost full. So I guess we're gonna start. Still connecting. Let's wait another minute and then we'll proceed. Great. Let's start. Hello, everybody. We are all very excited tonight. Indeed, we are hosting here in Paris the Mick Jagger of ultrasound, Daniel Lichtenstein. It is a great honor for Sonoscanner to share together 1 hour of his precious knowledge. Daniel Lichtenstein is the pioneer in ultrasound for critical care. And as you know, usually Dr. Lichtenstein is teaching all around the world. But nowadays, as frontiers are now closed, we are very lucky to be able to make the world come to him. You are more than 2,000 tonight, 2,000 physicians from around the world connected for this very special event. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience. It's a great honor for all of us here in Sonoscanner. A special hello thanks to the huge community from Ukraine with us tonight. Spasibo большое. Our partner in Ukraine organized a live translation that you can select in the Zoom platform. You can switch the language to Ukrainian. Here, some very useful on-the-screen information to go on with this presentation, with the book that you probably all already have, written by Daniel Lichtenstein, the Lung Ultrasound in the Critical Ill, and dealing especially with the Blue Protocol, and the link to the Surf Association website that I warmly recommend you to surf on. So how this webinar will be organized? Dr. Lichtenstein will present for about 50 minutes, or not about 50 minutes precisely, he told me, a very important expose, 3 key points to save lives with lung ultrasound. After this presentation, there will be a live demo using ultraportable scanner U-Light and its micro-convex probe on a live patient. Then we will take some time together to address the questions that you may have. This event tonight is hosted by Sonoscanner, the French manufacturer of ultrasound scanners. We are now, Sonoscanner is the leader in clinical ultrasound and high quality handheld device. With an offer of a 7-inch and a 10-inch ultrasound ultraportable system, we do cover most of the critical needs of imaging. Why is this so successful, this kind of device nowadays, and especially the U-Light and T-Light? It's because we offer 3 main characteristics that are very important. And we are the only one in the world to offer these features in a handheld system. First is a 12 bits analogic to numerical digitalization. It is very important for tissue differentiation. It gives you a great contrast resolution. Second, those devices, they include all Doppler modes, including PW and TDI for flow quantification. And 3, we do offer a full HD probes for high resolution in superficial imaging. Taking the opportunity of this great event, we offer you a free demo that you can register using the link over there, and we're going to share you by chat also the link, so it's easier for you to access. In 15-30 minutes, you will discover why the system is the one you need in your daily practice. So do not hesitate to register for a live demo, so we can demonstrate the capabilities of the device. At the end of the webinar, stay tuned. We will share with you a very important documentation, and more than documentation, it's another Bible, and it's written by Dr. Yannick Lebray. It's a guide for point-of-care ultrasound. It's actually an extract with the C main POCUS exam. It's an extract for a more complete book that Dr. Lebray is currently redacting. And it will be very useful for your daily practice to have this on your site. So we will share with you the link to this great abstract at the end of the webinar. Here you have all our contact information. Do not hesitate to contact us. All the team of Sonoscanner in Paris, in Europe, in the States, everybody is at your service to bring you the best service you require with using your ultrasound. Thanks a lot. Let me give you now Dr. Lichtenstein.
Alors, je partage l'écran, c'est ça? Cela arrêtera le partage des autres, continuer. Donc, je partage ici. Je me mets en PowerPoint. Je l'avais fait. Ah oui. Voilà. Ça, c'est terrible. Et appuyer sur échappe, ça, c'est contrôlé. Voilà. C'est bon, on peut commencer. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I think the microphone is here and the camera. So I'm very happy to have heard Etienne Richard making this very tonic, energetic introduction. I am very flattered also. And we have 50 minutes to deal with the title that he nicely gave to me, 3 key points to save lives with lung ultrasound. And I added, how does the blue protocol contribute to make of critical ultrasound a holistic discipline? And we will see what we mean by holistic discipline. Well, so it's not my first lecture, but I am really excited to be in this area. That is just in my country, in my city. That is great. I have no conflict of interest. I hope I will never have. The crisis is very difficult for most of us, but if I can do without, I will be able to say what I think. So if I say good thing, it's good. We deal with lung ultrasound. This field is not supposed to exist when you read the Harrison. And we will see 3 fast protocols that we call Blue Sesame Falls protocol. I am a medical intensivist. So if they wake me in the night, it is half of the time for a major concern, life-threatening. We will begin by an acute respiratory failure, and we will see the case of a lady who will benefit from the blue protocol. We will maybe not have time to detail her story. The point is that she's very dyspneic. All the elements do not allow to say, is it the heart or is it the lung? That is bronchial asthma or cardiac asthma, and she's very tired. I would like to relieve this poor lady. So as you know, we make echo. Echo, that is echocardiography. So the parasternal view will show to, there is a bad window. Let us see the apical view, poor window. Maybe the subcostal approach, she's a bit plethoric. I have no cardiac window. The heart is hidden by the bloody lung parasites that you see here. Can we do more for this lady? I see B-lines, multiple, and moving with the lung sliding. This is the B profile of the blue protocol. That is lung sliding with lung rockets on the 4 anterior points of the thorax. This is the B profile. The priority diagnosis is the heart, that is acute hemodynamic pulmonary edema. I treat, as you know, how to treat pulmonary edema. She was relieved and she came to the cath lab and she had a coronary obstruction eventually. So she was initiating a genuine pulmonary edema, hemodynamic. This example showed to us that lung ultrasound was here superior to the expert Doppler echocardiography. We had no window, and the lung ultrasound gave us the answer. I come back to bed. They call me for a cardiac arrest. Now we will see an example of the Sesame protocol. That's another patient, a younger lady admitted for pneumonia. And here you have no radiograph, no blood gas, you are blind. The blindness management for the sickest patient. And the Sesame protocol is a really fast protocol. I take a few seconds for showing before beginning. We have here a trolley machine, 32 centimeters since 1992. very small, very easy to go at the bedside. Switch on, 7 seconds. 7 seconds, not 5 minutes, 7 seconds. A probe which enables to do everything, the whole body, the universal microconvex probe. The machine is ready for the cardiac arrest when you switch it on. There is no button to touch, the depth, etc. And machine rather easy to buy. Let's begin. We suppose that shockable causes were ruled out. We suppose that the patient benefits from a ventilation by any means manual. And we begin. Top, left lung. I see lung sliding. Okay, it's not a pneumothorax. Right lung, top. The video is working, but nothing is moving. Oh. What do we see in this slide? A complete abolition of lung sliding, making the stratosphere side on the M mode, a repetition of the pleural line, that is a A line. This lady has the A prime profile of the blue protocol. That is a very high suspicion of pneumothorax because this profile is fully sensitive. And I don't insist because 50 minutes is a challenge, but in this context, she had a pneumothorax. In this example, we began ultrasound with the lung, and lung ultrasound was clearly superior to the most expert Doppler echocardiography that would have made lose time, where each second matters. Here we will see it was more recently an acute circulatory failure, and we will see an example of the false protocol of a poor young gentleman who took a lot of carbamates. He is in shock. And this is briefly, very briefly, the false protocol. We activate it, and what do we see? First, that there is no pericardial effusion. It's not the point in the drug poisoning. It took 1 second. That's the point. Second, we see that the right ventricle is not dilated. Can I use my arrow here? Not dilated. So somebody could think of a pulmonary embolism, completely unlikely. You can all see that the left ventricle is well contractile. For a carbamate drug poisoning, it may be important, but it is not studied in the false protocol. Instead of looking the left ventricle contractility, we take a look at the lung instead. What do we see? There is lung sliding, so there is no pneumothorax. It's not the point. It takes 1 second. And by the way, we just ruled out obstructive shock, pericardium, embolism, pneumothorax. No obstructive shock in this patient. What do we see is the A line with the lung sliding. This patient has the A profile. This patient cannot have left cardiogenic shock. As you will see, I don't see any interstitial disorder. At this step, I ask to give fluids to this patient. This patient is decreed false responder. And what did we see? It was an occult hypovolemia. So fluid therapy. And very schematically, 1 hour should be necessary. If the patient does not improve with the fluid therapy, it is not a hypovolemic shock. And at one moment, the patient will initiate B lines. And if B lines begin to appear, this means that we are at a beginning infraclinical step of interstitial edema. We will stop the fluid therapy and we will say, It's not obstructive, not cardiogenic, not hypovolemic. It's distributive. And in clinical practice, septic shock, usually. In this example, we did a lung ultrasound just after a simple emergency cardiac sonography, and we had on-off data, as opposed to echocardiography, which just gives numbers. Our 3 key points were seen in these 3 patients. We used a simple machine, a single probe, which is not cardiac, not linear, not abdominal. I have it, maybe you can see it through the mic, through the camera. We have no Doppler, we don't use it. Starts on immediate, it's not 7, in this one it is 12 seconds. A really small machine, clean. I mean by a 1992 machine, but a clean machine is mandatory among others. We have seen in these 3 examples the magic role of the B line. I said magic instead of major, but it's a lapsus, maybe not so wrong, because it helps to diagnose hemodynamic pulmonary edema. When it is absent, it's part of the diagnosis of pneumothorax. And when it is absent and then present under your fluid therapy, you have a false profile that mandates to stop the fluid therapy. The point number 3 is to understand that in each of these cases, lung ultrasound in the critically ill, Lucy, showed equal, and not to say superior, to traditional echocardiography. These are the 3 key points that we will see through the lecture, time permitting. So we use, since 1992, this very pleasant Japanese machine, which was updated in 2008, and it was only cosmetical. 1 probe, universal for the whole body, which is the best for the lungs. We will use a simple technique. So these are the blue points. We will not really detail them, but this is where we apply the probe. 2 anterior points and 1 as posterior as we can in these critically ill patients. And 10 signs. 10 signs, that's for the lung. We have 2 prides. Look how this machine can go easily through cumbersome corridors. We did not need to wait for the laptop revolution. Because when you have a laptop on a trolley, this machine with its 32 centimeters is just smaller. And the second point, since 3 decades, we use the probe of the future. That is a holistic, universal, microconvex probe. Today, there is a wide choice of microconvex probes. Each time we work in a tiny places like this beautiful bird, it's a Piaggio 180, or any work outside the hospital, or if you want in your pocket in the hospital, you have ultrasound with you. This is the ultimate protocol. Look at this bird. Strange, isn't it? It flies. I make some missions from time to time in it. And in this kind of environment, we need definitely mandatorily a small technology. No space for any trolley. Here we are at ease with this technology. So the 10 basic signs of Lucy. Let us remind for some and probably teach to many. that the first sign is the pleural line, which looks with the ribs when they are symmetrical like this. I have no time to show the acquisition, but we will do that, by the way. Everything is symmetrical, and I see a kind of a bat between the ribs and the pleural line. This is the bat sign, indicating always the parietal pleura, 0.5 centimeter in adults, below the rib line. This is mandatory. In this patient, we see a repetition of the pleural line at a standardized distance that we call the A line. This line indicates, it is horizontal, that we have air or gas, if you prefer, below the parietal pleura. Air alive or dead. We put the video, and what do we see in this space that we call the Merlin space, that is between the pleural line, the shadow of the ribs, the bottom of the screen? I put the video. I see a dynamic in this Merlin space, beginning exactly from the pleural line. This means that the air that you see below the parietal pleura is alveolar air, no pneumothorax. The lung is at the wall. If you want to show the lung sliding, you have the M mode that shows this sandy pattern below, exactly at the pleural line. So we call it the seashore side. We don't need Doppler, of course. Rapidly, we will see the sign of the pleural effusion. Regardless the color, we will have a line that is the lung line, that is the bright line, which is not the pleural line. The pleural line is a bit upstairs, exactly here, and the lung line comes toward the pleural line, making sinusoidal movements. We don't need Doppler. We don't need to define the pleural effusion as anechoic, because when it is echoic, it is echoic. So here we have the quad sign showing clearly that we have fluid pleural effusion. The lung consolidation can be translobar. That is, it looks like the lung. I see a lung which is completely pathologic because all the lung is filled by a fluid. This consolidation is translobar. It is subpleural because each time you see a consolidation, it is translobar. It is, subpleural. This word is useless. And we see the lung as it is anatomically. We call it the lung side. Don't need Doppler. Quite specific to lung consolidation. When the consolidation is partial, it is also subpleural. This word is useless. And we see a shredded fractal deep boundary that we call the fractal sign or shred sign, which indicates the lung consolidation. We don't need Doppler. And in this slide, we can see from left to right that here you have a huge translobar consolidation, here a smaller one, here even smaller one. All of them are subpleural, of course. And here I see very, very small one. So all these are different volumes of lung consolidation, nothing more. I don't see any subpleural consolidation. They are all subpleural. I don't see any irregular pleural line. I see to the right lung consolidations, just millimetric. The B line and the lung buckets. The B line is the elementary sign of interstitial syndrome, which has 7 criteria. 3 are constant. It's always a commit cell artifact. It always arises from the pleural line, that is with the bad side. It always moves with lung sliding, at the condition, of course, that lung sliding is present. In the critically ill, it's not always the case. And when it is absent, we have 4 other criteria that enable to always make the diagnosis. But these 4 last criteria are almost always present. Sometimes 5% you will have a default of them. So usually, almost always, it is long, spreading without fading. Almost always, it is well defined, a bit like a laser. Almost always, it erases the A lines that should be located exactly at these standardized zones. Almost always, it is hyperechoic, say white like the pleural line. And we call this artifact the B line. When we have more than 2 B lines in this short axis section, we say the word lung rockets. It reminds the rockets at liftoff. And we can simply say lung rockets indicate interstitial syndrome. No need for Doppler. Fully accurate for interstitial syndrome. The pneumothorax and the A profile. So look well, because there are so many confusions with pneumothorax. Here, just take a look. Is there the video? I will push again the button. Okay, there is a video now, but the image is quite standstill. And this is the striking pattern of the pneumothorax. We will not use Doppler, useless, and we will detail the A prime profile, as we called it. That is, the video is on. I see anteriorly, near the sky, lung sliding is abolished. On M mode, and in this machine, and also in this one, we have the 2 images exactly side by side. Critically important. Each millimeter counts. And I see that the pleural line is here. We have what we call the stratosphere sign. Please avoid the word barcode sign. You will make confusions. Stratosphere sign, like a squadron of a flying fortress in the stratosphere. I see also the A line. Lung sliding abolished plus exclusive A lines at the anterior wall define the A prime profile. Fully sensitive for pneumothorax and not specific. If you want to make the diagnosis, you have to search for the lung point. At a certain part of the thorax that you have to find, the lung point is strictly but simply defined, but strictly, by the very point where an A prime profile is suddenly replaced by any other profile period. Here we can see the A prime profile replaced by a lung sliding with a lung rockets that come very briefly. And if you have this pattern anteriorly, that's a minor, usually radio-occult case. If you see it laterally, it's a moderate volume. If you see it posteriorly, it's a substantial volume. Time is running, I don't insist. This indicates pneumothorax and pneumothorax volume. So we will try to make a bit of the blue protocol. We begin to be a bit late. So we will go rapidly. Lung ultrasound tells here is an interstitial syndrome. The blue protocol will say the cause: pulmonary edema, hemodynamic, permeability induced. So the blue protocol is a fast protocol taking 3 minutes, sometimes 5 seconds. It depends. It considers the lung because the patient comes because of the lung. So we look at the lung, no comment. The blue protocol considers the vein each time the anterior wall is normal because you suspect pulmonary embolism as the main differential diagnosis first. And the blue protocol considers the heart just to say that the heart can be deeply simplified to the point not to be included in the blue protocol. You will see why. We will try to make this 50 minutes lecture contributive by favoring the diagnosis of acute hemodynamic pulmonary edema. And the other causes, we will see them, but it's good to have one first diagnosis. This is the decision tree. So these are the diseases that we see in adults in the emergency room, but admitted in the ICU for respiratory failure. And we will see a bit of these pleasant data. We use the rules of musical harmony, that is, we combine locations and signs. We consider initially only the anterior chest wall, 2 points at each lung, and we consider 1 or 2 signs at this anterior wall. We follow the rules of gravity, and we will see here, we have a website, surf.net, where you can see these videos for free. In this patient, lung sliding is present. I see no lung rocket, even no beeline. We called it the A profile. Wait, a patient coming from pulmonary embolism, this patient will likely have the A profile, 95% sensitivity. Here, this patient has the same lung sliding, but here, lung rockets. That's the B profile, exclusive lung rockets. If a patient comes with hemodynamic pulmonary edema, this patient will very likely have the B profile, 97%. Here, there is no video. I put the video. Nothing is moving. Lung sliding is abolished. That's a disorder. Plus, lung rockets are present. 2 disorders. We called it the B prime profile. And when you have this profile, you know that your patient has pneumonia. Pneumonia or ARDS, which is quite the same, which is fully specific. And we saw already lung sliding abolished, lung rockets absent, completely absent. This is the A prime profile. And this patient, when displaying, has usually pneumothorax, fully sensitive sign. One last basic item anteriorly is this lung consolidation. This patient has the C profile. That's a pneumonia, almost always, regardless the number and volume of a consolidation. This means that if you have a very slight anterior consolidation, including what we call the CM line, that is 2 millimeters on something that was possibly a B profile, it's no longer a B profile, it's a C profile. That is pneumonia and not hemodynamic edema. Here you have 2 millimeter large consolidations. C profile. The therapy is not the same. Time is running. We will not detail the PLAPS for keeping on time, where you see consolidation or effusion at the PLAPS point, that is this very posterior point, and there is no mistake, we are very cranial. This is where the lung stops, and you can see the cupola in this image. Okay, don't read. To make a soft use of the blue protocol, we will begin step by step, but we will insist on the acute pulmonary edema. We see again the B profile. This is first the B line with the 7 criteria. We need more than 2 B lines to have lung rockets. These lung rockets must be disseminated at the anterior wall. They must move. We repeat, but repeating is teaching. Teaching is repeating. They move with lung sliding. And I don't see any anterior consolidation, even 1 millimeter. This is the B profile. And here, and only here, we can say this B profile is 97% sensitive, 95% specific for diagnosing hemodynamic edema. The definition is a bit heavy, but now you know the diagnosis of this patient. Don't forget you study the clinical conditions, you examine the patient. One more time, teaching is repeating. This patient has, we will use the decision tree, anterior lung sliding present. The Merlin space is full of B lines. At the 4 anterior points, I don't see any anterior consolidation, subpleural of course. That's the B profile. And we can say hemodynamic pulmonary edema with the previously said data. 20 seconds, that's for the diagnosis. And 20 years for having the microphone. That's life. We paid the price. How is it possible in a 50 minutes lecture where I will not tell all what happened? I just had the great opportunity to work since 1989 at François Jardin ICU. Not pleasant man, but he taught me the real intensive care. And that was the best place because he wanted the echocardiography to see the heart. He was the first. That was the best in the world. That was the best place to have the machine and to work the concept of critical ultrasound, which is what we revendicate, not lung ultrasound, whole body ultrasound, with very compact technology since 1992. The laptops did not bring a lot here. We wrote an article 1991. All what we could not publish is in our textbooks because there is no reviewer in a textbook. Well, and 20 years is the usual time for breaking a dogma, and this dogma was a very solid lung ultrasound impossible. But today we have friends, brothers, sisters all over the planet. All these people are doctors, apart from one, who is Etienne Richard, who I consider as a brother. We live the same adventure. That's just very hard, but a bit fascinating life. Well, pulmonary embolism. On healthy lungs, that is the patient that you see in the emergency room, not the patient with ARDS, it's another protocol. We have the ADVT profile. So we look at the heart if you want, but we look carefully at the lung. And what do we see in 95% of cases is the normality. Lung sliding, A line. The A profile is the usual sign of massive pulmonary embolism. At this step, we do not lose time to look at the posterolateral lung. We look at the veins first in a protocol that is under submission since 10 years. Lung sliding present, a profile that we all have when we are healthy. The venous analysis will at one moment show a DVT, not always, but when it shows the DVT, the diagnosis of pulmonary embolism is done with 99% specificity, and it occurs often, 81% of cases in the blue protocol. 99% of specificity. Wow. It's a lot. We just saw the lung and the vein, not yet the heart. What does it mean? That maybe we may delay, postpone the expert echocardiography training, which are a bit complicated with Doppler, VTI, a lot of things, for a result that works just better. And this is one of the definitions of holistic ultrasound. We lose time, so we will be fast with the pneumothorax and the nude profile of severe asthma and COPD, because time is running and it is good to focus on the B profile. So here, I will say rapidly, because we are late, that everything is normal, even the veins, even the posterior lung. And we say that's probably COPD or asthma with 89% sensitivity and a nice specificity. The pneumonia is maybe the most important, the most complex, and also the fastest. But I don't want to make the lecture too toxic, let us say. We have one edema, one embolism, but you have hundreds of microbes. We will see in this 50 minutes lecture only 2 profiles on 4. The B prime profile, and we saw it already, is lung rockets with abolished lung sliding. B prime profile. It was in the article 2008, but it is today fully specific to pneumonia ARDS. Lung sliding, abolished, B prime profile, usually, in my experience, all the time, pneumonia. The C profile. Each time we see an anterior lung consolidation, it is quite 98 specific to pneumonia. Here, it's a big one. If it is anterior, it counts. Lung sliding present or like here, abolished. C profile, pneumonia. Even if it is small, this is a C line, a CM line, very small, it's a C profile. Provided, we repeat, it is anterior, and 2 others that we will not see because time is running. What do we want to do with the blue protocol? We would like to decrease the number of these barbarian blood gas analysis. If we can decrease 1% each decade, it should be the end of blood gas in 3020. You see the image is to decrease each time you have the diagnosis. It hurts, you have no time to anesthetize. Rapidly, time is running. Why is the heart not included? Because we scan the suffering organ, which is the lung. The patient comes because of the lung. We will scan the heart. After the blue protocol, it is associated, not included, which is not the same. Which means, look at this patient, dyspneic patient, The slide is difficult, you will see why. So I see this pattern, and if my colleagues are worried about the left ventricle systolic or diastolic function, or the coaptation of the left valves, I can say quietly, I don't see any B-line. So there is no lung rockets. So no interstitial syndrome. So no hemodynamic pulmonary edema. All these functions are supposed to work correctly, in the best case. And if they don't, lung ultrasound will prevail. If you have questions, we will see that quietly. So rapidly, for not losing time, I see A profile, I see a scary DVT. We consider the diagnosis of embolism, even if the echocardiography seems to be pathologic. The left heart is maybe pathologic, but not the cause of the dyspnea. I see no B-line. And look, one probe can scan the lung, the vein, the heart. Is blue an acronym? No. Is it important? No. So more important than knowing if it is acronym or not, we will see a little bit of the false protocol, that is the answer to the scary question, to give or not to give fluids. That's an unsolved question today again. And do not read this slide because it is too long and time begins to run. The B-line has respiratory applications, but also hemodynamic applications. And we can predict the pulmonary artery occlusion pressure. We have to take several precautions, and we will see a bit more slides. So we saw the patient who took the carbamates, how we used it. Here in this diagram, we can see that the A profile indicates a low PaOP, or more strictly not elevated, between 18 and 0 millimeters. In the sequence of the false protocol, the A profile enables for fluid therapy in the sequence where you begin by the pericardium, the heart, etc. And you can answer the two basic questions. Should I give fluids to this patient? And when shall I stop the fluid therapy? False protocol. So we will not detail this decision tree that indicates the Max Harry-Weil's terminology of shock, obstructive, cardiogenic, hypovolemic, and septic, where the A lines should not reach the step of lung rockets. We should stop the fluid therapy before. This is a silent step, based without any measurement, no Doppler, no VTI, only simplicity. The SESAMI protocol, we have a bit of time, is the protocol for cardiac arrest. This is an illustration of holistic ultrasound. We can prove that when each second counts, a vintage machine can work better than the modern, up-to-date laptop machines because it is small in the lateral dimension when it is on a trolley in an intensive care unit. These old machines switch on in 7 seconds. Well, 12 is a good performance also, but 30 seconds is a bit long, and 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And we have the one probe philosophy that is for the lung, veins, abdomen, pericardium. We don't change no setting in the machine. And for the heart, we move a little bit the depths. So this machine is ready for the worst, that is for the cardiac arrest. When you switch it on, you have 8 centimeter depth, but time is unfortunately fastly going. We don't need to validate because pneumothorax is already validated. And we begin by the lung as we saw previously. No lung setting, we have one setting for the whole body. Well, rapidly, PING protocol is for ARDS. We have the same signs as in pneumonia. So nothing more to say. The Lucy FLR project targets at decreasing irradiation. This lady has a pneumothorax and she's pregnant. And ultrasound shows the A prime profile. And in the diagram, you see the target of the Lucy FLR project to decrease the chest radiograph by 1/3, but to decrease chest CT by 2/3. Look, the lung sliding, it has appeared, which means that you succeeded to put the lung at the wall. No need to make an X-ray. Ultrasound is a mini bedside CT, slightly inferior, slightly superior. You mix all, you have the equality. So we have a reasonable bedside gold standard. The neonate, this is a critical target. In the neonate, everything must be done for avoiding irradiation and loss of time. So we have the no acronym protocol because you don't need always to have an acronym. So the NAP can be summarized, the NAP, NAP, in one sentence, the same signs than in adults. The babies do not have new different signs. So it's rather logical, basic to study it. In the adults, some babies had time to get very fat, and we will make the fat protocol, which allows, in spite of this 6 centimeter fat barrier, to see that this poor man has no pulmonary edema, no B-line, and no pneumothorax, no abolition of lung sliding. So there are plenty of chronic centers. We have the SERV. I hope that here we will do nice work here at the sonoscanner area. All disciplines where you say the word lung, that is all the ones that switch in blue, will be interested. It's simple but wide-ranging, including, if you want, veterinarian fields. So we have a translational discipline. I have time before the 50 minutes for a take-home message. Let us take one B-line, quietly but sharply defined. Let us multiply it by more than 2, that is from 3, here 4. You add lung sliding. You specify that you are at the anterior chest wall. You just have the B profile of the blue protocol. And here you can say with nice confidence, not Henrik, you are a doctor, but very likely your patient has hemodynamic pulmonary edema. You can initiate the therapy, make echocardiography just more quietly when the patient has been relieved by your therapy. And this is one side of holistic ultrasound. We have 3 minutes, but I will not spoil the time. Our latest commentary, if you have the web, it is on free access, it is in chest 156.21-25. You can see the PDF for free. It shows the usual misconceptions in lung ultrasound. It is devoted to experts, but also for young beginners. There is no difference. And the time is finished. There are 2 minutes left from the 50. And you can see in this image, I was much younger with my production. They are now grown-ups. And you can see that this machine, it was a Dymax TM18 from Pittsburgh in 1994. I knew it. I took it in the Mauritanian desert for making the Dakar rally. Today, we have, of course, something much more interesting from the technical point of view. So I said 50 minutes, and I'm glad to have finished a little before the time. Thank you, and we are waiting your questions, unless we make a demonstration.
Online, we can do some live scan, and then
Absolutely.
we can address the questions. Meanwhile, you can ask the question on the chat.
So we will scan Nicolas, and I'm glad that there was no bug.
Everything went perfectly as usual with you, Professor.
Oh,
Right.
I'm very glad. If I say that, it's because sometimes we have some sweet, some bad
Sure.
moments. So what do I do with the? I keep the.
Yes, you can keep it on.
Oh, okay, it's good. Alors, attendez, pas complètement. How do you feel?
Good. I'm good.
So we're going to use the U-Light with the microconvex probe and the blue app activated on.
You feel good?
Yes, I
W-
think so.
We will see. We will see that. Ultrasound does not lie. Our interpretation. So, combien de temps on a pour respecter les. Très bien. Alors, attendez, ça on va mettre sur le côté. Et donc je fais une démonstration vocale. Très bien, donc avec deux, très bien. Fine configuration. So, Nicolas says to me that he feels fine. And I say to him, we will see. So, I should make it hot before beginning. So we will see together. I do not know Nicolas. And we will scan with that universal probe, the microconvex probe, which must have a good, sufficient resolution and also a good ergonomy. The ergonomy is correct, and the range, normally, the machine should be configured for cardiac arrest. If I have no time, the machine must be ready. And as you can see, it has 8 centimeters. I will probably not have time to say that if I was a robot, I would put the probe like this, and I would have a disgusting image. And the interest of ultrasound is a manual technique. So I make 3 corrections that will be a bit longer. But I need to have the bed side, that is the 2 ribs, exactly side by side. And we can see. Donc là, il y a le petit problème de gap. We can see between 2 ribs that the pleural line has a movement. If I make the M mode, it is useless. I can see it. But if I push the M mode, I can see that we have the seashore sign that was visible on real time, which confirms that we have no pneumothorax. And by the way, I see also that Nicolas has no B line at all, only 1, 2 A lines. So I will make what I call the Carmen maneuver to see if there is B line or not. As I scan another area, lung sliding A lines, we come to the left, this probe is very practical to hold, and we can go everywhere. In difficult to access areas, it makes no difference. Lung sliding, no lung rockets. I make the Carmen maneuver. Here you have ill-defined comet-tail artifacts, which in some way are beautiful because they are ugly. And these are Z lines, not V lines, for reasons they are not well defined. They are not white from the beginning. They do not move. And if I change the depth, you would see they are short, so they are not V lines. And the fourth point indicates A lines with lung sliding. Up to now, Nicolas has the A profile. Here is an N line. You see the black line that moves from left to right. It's an interlobular septum, normal. So maybe he is part of the majority of people who have B lines. The problem is not to lose time by searching for isolated B lines because they are very frequent. It should be elegant to have one. So I go where Benjamin Felson found in the chest X-ray 20% of young people who had Kerley lines, but Nicolas does not. Wait a second. So it's the real life. That is, I would love to show you a B line, but sometimes in a short examination, we don't see any. Because it should be a pity to search for hours and not show the rest. Okay, we will see at the end, maybe because they are gravity dependent, maybe they will appear posteriorly, but in 10 minutes, I'm not sure. So he has an A profile, and we will check for deep venous thrombosis. So I don't ask him to take off the trouser. So I will consider the jugular veins because they are accessible veins. It's not a vascular probe. Okay, so as you can see, we have the artery. So you can see my finger on the... où est la flèche? J'observe jamais de la flèche. Il n'y a pas. At the middle, we can see the artery. And at the left, and I put it at the middle now, I see a complete thrombosis of the vein. So here, when I have this profile, I know that this patient has a anterior lung normal, deep venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism. Unless, the button is here. Excuse me. I will put the probe normally. I will put it at the same area. And here, of course, there's no DVT. I can see the internal jugular vein, which is very small, but very flexible with the breathing. And if I compress it disappears. And there are plenty of ways to increase. Now he's completely sitting. Maybe the subclavian vein will be easier to see. So here is a beautiful subclavian vein that is just beside the artery. And here, if I had to cannulate one vein, I would choose this side because it is open. And I would go very rapidly with that magic probe. Look how we see the subclavian vein. It's not a vascular probe, it's better. I should put my needle long axis and it should penetrate the vein. Well, of course, he has no DVT because he is healthy. At this step, in a protocol that the journals refuse to publish, but one day we will. We just lose time, that's all. If I see no DVT, and with that shape of probe, we can go at very unusual places, like here. So I don't know Nicolas, I discover him, but look, the aortic crossa. Excuse me. See how we can see it. So sometimes we can see the right pulmonary artery inside the crossa. Not always. And here, I don't want to lose time because time is running. Voilà, so it is here. I don't see if you see. And here it's not a very good window. But if we find DVT at the usual places, and I insist in the blue protocol, far from the heart, that is the calf veins especially. If everything is fine, we say it's maybe not an embolism, but maybe it is, and we scan the posterior lung. So normally, we put two hands side by side from the size of the patient hand, and at this area, I have no time to comment the blue points, but if I go here, I will be at what we call the PLAPS point. C'est pas trop froid. I put the probe like this. And we seem to be very high, but the abdomen is not at the first down intercostal space, but probably, I put more gel. At the second one, here we are in a full, no, don't do that because it's better to stay. Okay. If not, you take off the thorax upstairs. So just look, here we are in full abdomen, so it's not a lung consolidation, but I don't finish my sentence. So I go a bit upstairs, and here you are at the nipple line, as you can see. So if there is a lung consolidation or a pleural effusion, you should see it at the PLAPS point. So here you can see typical B lines at a typical normal location. You can see three beautiful ones, Kerley lines, but seen with ultrasound. Everything is fine. We all have some B lines. So here, even if it is lung rockets, don't treat them, they are physiological. If I go to the left, it's a bit cold. Sorry. If I go to the left, I see no consolidation. I will scan upstairs, so to the head, and here I see a disgusting consolidation, and I can make a diagnosis of likely pneumonia. Tissue-like. It's not very shredded here. It's not a lung consolidation. It's a spleen. But you can simulate all the disorders. The spleen, and upstairs a lung, which is, look here, normal. At this point, so the camera, you do not see my probe. Enfin, you will not see it because of the camera, but it is posterior. Look the image quality. That's for radiologist, spleen, kidney, etc. We have no flaps. That is no posterolateral alveolar pleural syndrome. So at this step, I saw nothing with my examination, and probably, if it happens in the real life, I should favor the diagnosis of COPD in adults, and in young people, rather asthma. Okay, so I don't take too much time for scanning the heart like a cardiologist, because here I can see clearly pericardium fine, right ventricle volume fine, left ventricle contractility. So I don't take all my time. But here, eyeballing shows normal, global, left ventricle contractility. So you know he's supine. I should put him a bit laterally. So this probe is rather universal. Look, the aorta, the left renal vein, the inferior caval vein, the splenomesorrhaeic vein, a beautiful pancreas, a bit of the stomach. Well, so it's good to have one probe that makes the whole body. Alors, je ne sais pas si on a un petit peu de temps encore. Pardon? On fait des questions. Et bah, chez un sujet sain, il n'y a pas grand-chose à montrer. Oh, je l'ai rendu malade. Hein. Je lui ai trouvé un syndrome interstitiel, une consolidation qui était fausse. Et quoi d'autre? Épanchement pleural, je ne sais pas, encore simulé. On peut ouvrir aux questions parce que là,
yes, maybe we can answer some questions while you scan, or of course there are some questions about the COVID situation. There are many questions. Let me find. There is one from Dr. Ola Debel. How post-COVID changes of lungs tissue may be evaluated? The changes of lung tissue due to COVID. Have you noticed anything special for?
Je réponds où et comment?
They hear you. You just talk. Everybody hears you.
Ouais, je voudrais bien quand même regarder sa direction. Il est où, ce docteur?
Oui. Enfin, on le voit pas. Hein. Il est sur la caméra qui est devant vous.
La caméra qui est ici. D'accord. So the question is, what shall we see with COVID patients?
With after the COVID, the impact on the lung due to COVID.
Interstitial syndrome, alveolar syndrome, moderate, pleural effusion, moderate if any. That's all.
Okay.
From the from the qualitative sense. If you scan the body, you will see, usually in a severe COVID, you will see extensive lesions. That is, you will see an IRDS. And if you are accustomed to see IRDS, you will see the pattern of IRDS. It is most of the time not looking like hemodynamic pulmonary edema because the lung consolidations are frequent and anterior. And I would say that COVID makes a C profile. And C profile is found in plenty of causes of pneumonia, IRDS, knowing that IRDS is a severe, extensive, deadly pneumonia, but pneumonia.
Yeah. Dr. Mamonov asked how to distinguish fibrosis from pneumonia.
Well, fibrosis needs to be diagnosed. When I receive a critically ill patient, I cannot make biopsy. And so the diagnosis of fibrosis is always risky. And this is why my research is very limited in the field of the acute critically ill patient. But I would say usually fibrosis will give interstitial signs. And don't forget that if you see a fibrosis, it is in a patient who had IRDS. So the interstitial signs of the interstitial tissue fibrosis will be completely melted with the previously damaged alveolar and interstitial tissue. And I would say it is a tricky field. I would not dare to say that's a fibrosis or that is an interstitial syndrome, which is not a fibrosis.
We have a question for you from the Dr. Stéphane Boucher. We say hi. Our friend here.
Stéphane.
And he asked you if you prefer the convex probe or the microconvex probe. He said that last time he visited you, you were using the more convex probe.
The more convex probe?
Well, the convex probe, he says, but
Well, so now I have in my hands a microconvex probe, which has some little points for being perfect, but with a small probe like this, and we are working on that precisely currently, we can see the things from the perfect range in critical care, that is from a small distance, not too small, because too small, 1 millimeter, you take the linear probe, but you lose all what is at a distance. And so I see from 5 millimeters up to 15, which for me is universal in a standard patients. With the end, I can go everywhere, because the smaller the head of the probe, the less obstacles I will have, not in him, but in patients who have a skinny configuration, who have devices, catheter, tubes, etc., the smaller area will be the best. I can hear Stefano. Please.
No, it's no.
Hoping to see you.
Let's take a few more questions before concluding. Could you explain again why some B lines are physiologic in posterior airways?
It's the gravity, and Benjamin Felson showed it in 1973 in X-rays. That is, the gravity makes a little bit of fluid, enlarging the posterior and caudal septa, sometimes in his series in 17-19% of cases, and we have roughly the same as we had with Nicola, by the way. And these areas are not dangerous. It can be physiological. In the Blue protocol, we do not scan the lateral part for making the simplest tool because it's redundant and useless. But anterior B-lines is possible, I have, but anterior lung rockets from the value of 3 is not normal. If you have at the 4 anterior points the lung rockets, the patient has a diffuse interstitial syndrome. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, sure. Another question about how do you recognize hyaline membrane disease?
Well,
Question from Tuka.
okay, so my experience was done mainly in the adult. I made enough experience in the neonate field to see that they have the same signs. In these babies, we will see not only B-lines, but multiple B-lines, that is lung rockets, and we will see impaction mucoid alveolar syndromes, usually of a moderate size, but we will not see a change between maladie des membranes hyalines, I cannot say that in English, hyaline membrane disease, and ARDS, adult respiratory distress syndrome, very schematically. So I do not pretend to make a difference.
How to find appropriate PEEP during mechanical ventilation using blue?
Blue protocol gives you a diagnosis. In the emergency room, you know how to treat the patient before taking the patient to the intensive care unit. I work in François Jardin intensive care unit, if you heard me in the lecture. And François Jardin stayed 1 week not saying one word. And then he was thinking, and hard guy, but when he thinks, he goes beyond the others. And he said, but PEEP is deleterious. It gives more harm than good. And so we will not make PEEP or a little bit. This is why I am not expert to say, especially in his historical department, I am not expert to say one word about PEEP and the best PEEP, for instance. If you see, I have a bit of time to answer.
Yes.
If I see a lung consolidation, if I increase the PEEP, the consolidation may decrease, but I will worsen the venous return, and it is not good. So we are happy because we see the saturation going up, but we make the bed for multiple organ failure. It does not come from my mouth, but from François Jardin. So I think that the studies should be designed with that issue in mind.
Okay. And maybe one last question, how to distinguish fibroatelectasis from consolidation?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not understand the question. Fibroatelectasis?
Yes.
Fibroatelectasis.
From consolidation.
What is fibroatelectasis?
It's a question from Dr. Mamonov. I don't know if he can elaborate on this. So it may be hard to distinguish.
Non, je ne connais pas ce mot. Fibroatelectasis.
Maybe it's fibrosis, no? Or, no?
Je pense pas, non. I'm very sorry. I don't have enough information to answer. Do you mean obstructive atelectasis?
I don't know. I don't see.
Pas trop froid?
Oh, ça va,
Well, let's finish with this question, the COVID related. We kind of answered it, but we can get back on this to finish with. Are there any specific signs of COVID pneumonia?
There are plenty, dozens, hundreds, maybe 1,000 articles answering the question. And all these articles say that there is what they call coalescent B lines with, how they call it, the light beam sign, with the waterfall sign. All these patterns can be seen in acute respiratory distress syndrome. So I think that this question is rather cultural. That is, many doctors discovered lung ultrasound thanks to COVID, and it is a good thing. But I think that they got a little bit hurried when they described the signs of COVID. And I think that if you see any patient with ARDS, you will see interstitial syndrome with ground glass patterns, what we call glass rockets. That is a lot of B lines, not more than 2, but more than 5. That is not far from a white Merlin Space, not far. And this pattern is common to many causes, including hemodynamic pulmonary edema. So I would say that reading the literature, I do not think there is a specific sign. But what's the name of the colleague?
No, I don't have it on in front of me, the name, sorry.
But he listens to me.
Yes.
Okay. You will have an answer once it will be published by my team. And we are working day and night to give this answer.
It's Dr. Vitaly Zinchenko.
Vitaly
Zinchenko.
Because answering something that was not published, that is accepted by the peer reviewers, is not honest. So you have to wait a little bit. But if you trust the huge literature, you will see that it is specific. But probably you will treat hemodynamic pulmonary edema. So be careful to the clinical patterns. And I try to send the paper as soon as possible. But I am accustomed to see all my manuscripts rejected once, 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, maybe because I am wrong. So it is not polite, it is not honest to speak of unpublished data. I'm very sorry.
So we will wait a little bit more, but we are eager to read it.
And I hope that they will accept the paper with not too many attempts and not too many journals.
Unfortunately, all the best things come to an end. We'll have to close this live webinar. Thank you a million times, Professor Lichtenstein. It was a great presentation. We had a lot of thanks through the chats that we're gonna read to you afterwards. And I'm sure you all enjoyed this presentation as we did. Do not hesitate to get back to the basis, to the source, and read the great book, Lung Ultrasound in a Critically Ill, the Blue Protocol. We put it here also, the link to the SURF Association, if you want to learn more and join the community of followers of Daniel Lichtenstein. I really recommended this. Let me share with you once, yes, the link to retrieve this great book by Dr. Lebray, A Guide for Ultrasound in Primary Care, with the 6 POCUS exam explained in details. You will find here images, anatomical sections, and, interesting facts, pitfalls, everything you need to proceed with an examination in the POCUS setup. So here the link, you just have to click on it, and Marie sends it also on the chat. Also on the chat, we sent you a link to the video of the Sesame protocol that we had the chance to record with Daniel Lichtenstein using the ULIGHT a few years ago. So you can check this video, and it's very detailed, step by step, for the Sesame protocol. And you will notice on this video that it's just like 45 seconds, I think, to do the Sesame protocol. It's very impressive. Here, all the contact detail information. Do not hesitate to reach us. I know lots of you have already booked their their free demo over the internet to discover the devices. You can still do this now, and in the coming hours, the platform will be open. Thank you very much. Thank you, doctor. Спасибо вам большое, которые с нами были из Украины. And have a very nice evening. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.